Have you ever wondered what it is like to set foot on a continent that is almost entirely covered in ice? A place so remote and inhospitable that for centuries it was just a myth, a phantom landmass on ancient maps. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of how Antarctica, the frozen continent at the bottom of the world, was finally discovered. For thousands of years, humans looked at maps of the world and felt something was missing. Ancient Greek philosophers, like Aristotle, reasoned that, for the Earth to be balanced, there must be a large landmass in the southern hemisphere to counteract the known lands. In the north, they call it Terra Australis, incognita, the unknown southern land. This idea stuck around for a very, very long time. It was a geographical ghost story, a massive continent that everyone believed existed, but no one had ever seen. Fast forward to the age of exploration. Brave mariners were sailing the globe, mapping new coastlines and discovering new worlds. Naturally, finding this great southern continent was the ultimate prize. But every time they sailed south, they were met with nothing but freezing winds, monstrous icebergs, and a seemingly endless ocean. The further they went, the colder and more dangerous it became. It seemed like Terra Australis was destined to remain a legend. Enter the legendary Captain James Cook. In the 1770s, Cook embarked on a series of voyages that would change our understanding of the planet. He was determined to settle the question of the southern continent once and for all. On his second voyage, he and his crew became the first people to ever cross the Antarctic Circle. Imagine that moment, sailing into a world nobody from your civilization has ever witnessed. They were surrounded by a dense pack of sea ice, forcing them to turn back just 120 kilometers from the Antarctic coast. Cook never actually saw the landmass of Antarctica, but what he did see was enough to convince him that if a continent existed, it was buried under an impenetrable wall of ice, doomed by nature to be forever useless to humankind. His reports were so convincing that for the next 50 years, almost everyone gave up the search. The dream of Terra Australis seemed to be dead. But human curiosity is a powerful thing. By the early 19th century, the focus had shifted from finding a mythical paradise to something far more practical. Seals. The hunt for seals and their valuable pelts drove ships further and further south, into the treacherous waters Cook had described. These were tough, commercial boyaries, not grand scientific expeditions. The crews were sealers and whalers, not explorers in the traditional sense. And it's among these rugged individuals that the first confirmed sighting of Antarctica likely occurred. Here's where the story gets a bit messy, because history isn't always neat and tidy. At least 3 different parties have a credible claim to being the first to see the Antarctic mainland, and it all happened within a few days of each other in January 1820. It's like 3 people arriving at a finish line at almost the exact same time. First, we have the Russian Imperial Navy expedition led by Fabian Gottlieb von Bell. He was a seasoned naval officer tasked by the Tsar to circumnavigate the globe and explore the high southern latitudes basically. To pick up where Cook had left off, on January 27, 1820, Bellingshausen's logbook describes seeing an ice-covered shoreline. He was looking at what we now know as the shelf, a massive sheet of ice attached to the coast of Queen Maud Land. Many historians credit this as the first official sighting of the Antarctic continent. But just 2 days later, on January 29th, a British Royal Navy officer named Edward Bransfield, sailing on a chartered ship, also sighted land. He was surveying the newly discovered South Shetland Islands when he spotted the towering peaks of the Antarctic Peninsula. He charted it as Trinity Land, and his sighting was incredibly detailed. Unlike Bellingshausen, who saw a vast, undifferentiated ice shelf, Bransfield saw mountains and rock unmistakable signs of a continental landmass. And then there's the American claim. A young sealer from Connecticut named Nathaniel Palmer, captain of a tiny ship called the Hero, was out hunting for new sealing grounds. Palmer was known for his sharp eyes and daring navigation. In November of 1820, several months after the others, he too sailed south from the South Shetland Islands and saw the very same peninsula that Bransfield had. It described a land not yet laid down on any chart. For a long time, Americans championed Palmer as the true discoverer of Antarctica. That part of the continent is still known today as Palmer Land. So who was first? Bellingshausen, Bransfield, or Palmer? The debate continues to this day. Bellingshausen likely saw the ice shelf first. Bransfield was probably the first to clearly identify and chart a part of the continental landmass, and Palmer, the sealer, independently confirmed its existence a few months later. What's clear is that around 1820, the veil was finally lifted. The unknown southern land was no longer unknown, but seeing the continent was one thing. Setting foot on it was another. The first confirmed landing on the Antarctic mainland is another point of historical debate. For a long time, it was believed that an American sealer named John Davis was the first. His ship's log for February 7th, 1821, records that he sent a boat ashore to look for seals, stating, "I think this southern land to be a continent." They landed at a place called Hughes Bay on the Antarctic Peninsula. However, some historians argue this claim is a bit shaky, and that the first undisputed landing didn't happen until over 70 years later. In 1895, a Norwegian-led whaling expedition stopped at Cape Adair. A young Norwegian man named Karsten Boy, who was working as a deckhand and part-time scientist, impulsively jumped out of the boat and scrambled ashore onto a pebbly beach. He was desperate to be the first man to set foot on the continent proper. Another man from the expedition, the captain, claimed he landed at the same time. Either way, this landing marked the beginning of a new chapter in Antarctic history. From this point on, the focus shifted from mere discovery to exploration, science, and the ultimate, heroic race to the South Pole. This heroic age of Antarctic exploration gave us legendary figures like Shackleton, Scott, and Amundsen, whose stories of survival and ambition are truly epic. So, from an ancient Greek theory to a phantom on a map, from the edge of Captain Cook's known world to the sharp eyes of Russian, British, and American sailors, the discovery of Antarctica wasn't a single event. It was a gradual revelation, a puzzle pieced together by philosophers, explorers, and sealers over centuries. It's a testament to the human desire to know what lies over the horizon, even if that horizon is a frozen wasteland at the end of the earth. The seventh continent had finally joined the world map. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the past. Let me know in the comments who you think deserves the title of Discoverer of Antarctica. See you next time.